I am the Narcopath. I'm here to give you a few more confessions. I'm sure you've always wondered what happened on that vacation that you took me to Mexico. I figured enough time has passed I can tell you safely what happened.
I know you were confused when we first checked into our hotel. Shortly after doing so, we were putting our suitcases away, and we heard a knock at the door. Some Hispanic boy. Glad you don't know Spanish. And he was talking to me because, face it, I have fans all over the world, and he happened to recognize me. I can't help that. And I could tell that you were head over heels in love with me. Who isn't? I spoke to him for quite a while. I know you asked later what we were talking about, and I made it really simple. I just said that he thought I was a Jones, and I wasn't a Jones, even though I never said the word Jones. I kept talking. In fact, I even went into the hall with him. The fact was, he was soliciting me for, you know what. He wanted a piece of my Virginia. Again, who doesn't? I couldn't tell you any of this because I needed your money. I needed the bank account that I knew you had. I couldn't tell any of this. That's why I went in the hall. The truth is, he wanted to organize a rendezvous with me. And remember that afternoon when I disappeared for hours? And I made up a story and you didn't even believe the story? That I got stuck in a record store and was looking at all the records. I went from A to Z, and by the time I realized it was over at Z, I was 3 hours, 4 hours later. Oh, honey, I don't think it takes too much for you to know what we were doing. I went to his little cabana. I spread my thighs. I gave him what he wanted. He recognized me from the USA. He wanted a piece of the Narcopath, Virginia, and he got it. I know I came back to the room later, and you said, why is your hair all messed up? Why is your makeup smeared? And all that. And I said, honey, it was hot walking here. I wiped my face by accident. No, you smelled another guy's perfume in my hair, and I just told you I stopped by Sephora and sprayed some because I thought I had some B.O. And you bought all that. Well, the truth is, I'm an international lover. I've got partners all over the world. There's no way I would ever be stuck with one, regardless what I told you. I often tell my targets that I need one person and one person forever. But that's not for me. That's intended for them. So they feel that they have to do the same. That's how I do my magic. My goal is for me to have at least 1,000 different lovers in 1 year, and for my partner to have only one, which is me. That's the way I roll, because I am the Narcopath, and you ain't. Oh.
Oh, and that one night the news came on, and my favorite newscaster, Sandy Hoaxtard, was on. You saw pretty much literally my tongue hanging out of my mouth while she was on the whole time. You questioned that?
That's before you knew I was part lesbian. And I told you, oh, you're seeing things, you're paranoid. My tongue only came out because I felt a piece of salt on my chin and was trying to get it off. You have a filthy mind, you filthy pervert. I'm in the mood for Sandy Hoaxtard. She's the one who turns me on. You must know. You don't. You never did.
I just wanted your money.
Hi, I'm Sandy Hoaxtard. Welcome to TV5 Special News Update. Tonight, we're going to discuss something called propaganda. Because a lot of you out there are completely misinformed, and it's my duty to set the record straight. So let's define propaganda. First of all, propaganda is information that is not objective and that is used primarily to influence an audience and to further an agenda. It's often presenting facts selectively to encourage a particular synthesis or perception, using loaded language to produce an emotional rather than a rational response to the information that's being presented. So we'll move on then. You know what propaganda is. There's something very few of you are aware of. You just gotta look, though. There's something called the Smith-Mundt Act of 1948. The U.S. government has unbound the legal regulations against using propaganda against foreign audiences and American citizens. The intention is to sway public opinion by using television, radio, newspapers, and social media, targeting the American and foreign people in control PSYOP. What's a PSYOP? A psychological operation. In 1948, this law was passed to prevent propaganda from being used against the American people by the American government. Well, honey, that is a thing of the past, and you probably won't see that on your counterfeit news networks. What it basically means is that our U.S. government is allowed to use propaganda on its own citizens. Now think about that for a moment. Trying to sway public opinion using government-created fake stories. Sound familiar? Fake? We'll get into that in a moment. But what you've got to realize is with this new act, that means we can be given fictitious information for the purpose of influencing and swaying our opinion. Well, take a look. What do we see here in America lately? This was passed in 2012 or 2013, so what have you noticed since then? Mass shootings. They're seeming to be happening every week, every day, every hour. Why do you think that is? For all these years, we never had any types of major mass shootings one after another. There might be one that's down in history, but not hundreds. Honey, get a clue. It's called legal propaganda. Why would they do that? To sway public opinion. What's the typical reaction to these? I'm getting ahead of myself. There's something called problem, reaction, solution. This ties in with this propaganda law. These mass shootings would never happen organically. No kid in the right mind is going to think it could go into a school, for example, with a gigantic AR-15 and blow students away. In fact, in the real world, he probably wouldn't even make it in the front door of the school. He'd be tackled and knocked over, or in a Las Vegas hotel. There's no way some guy's going to be able to smuggle 30-some-odd weapons into a room with nobody seeing it and nobody paying attention. Are you kidding? But you American people are sheeple who believe what your television says, not even realizing that it's fake. Notice how newscasters who are supposed to be of journalistic quality, they're calling things fake news now. Does that work with journalism? If you're a real journalist and you're telling a story, someone else comes out with a counter story with details and facts, that ain't fake news. And to say it is throwing away your journalism degree because it's your job to be objective. But do you see that on these news stations? No. You see these stories covered as propaganda shooting stories with emotional elements designed to get the people watching, like the sheeple they are, to feel so sorry for all these poor children who were gunned down. It's all because of what? Those guns! We've got to get those guns! Notice the narrative. Notice the child crisis actors hired and the scripted CNN town halls. They're only the people who are for the agenda, which is gun control, are the ones allowed to speak. Now, do you see what's happening yet? This isn't a natural conclusion in a real world. For example, if you found out that someone came into your daughter's school and killed 50 students, well, I would think you'd be concerned with the fact that somebody committed murder. No, this narrative is steered to say, oh, children were murdered? Oh, it's the gun. We must get the gun. You're focusing on the trigger itself being pressed instead of a person pressing the trigger. All this propaganda against guns is just going everywhere, all over the news, and people are actually falling for it because they're using an emotional story. Unlike the Sandy Hoaxtard, which was ridiculously unbelievable, this one seems to be working, this latest one. People are buying into it. They're actually believing the lie. You know that the stories aren't ever true. If you look at anything the mainstream media has put on, as far as shootings or mass killings, everyone strives to be the worst in history as opposed to the one right before it. The fact of the matter is, they all have the same characteristics. What do you see? You see retarded crisis actors telling their stories, and it's a common theme now where the official story is, there was a lone gunman. They love that because why? Because legally it's not considered a conspiracy if it's one person. So if they were to announce there's more than one, that would open up a different legal can of worms. But you always have that one or two witnesses that claims they heard another shooter. And what does that do to the people? That divides them. Because you've got Granny who simply watches the news once and it's accepted as fact. And then you've got her daughter and got her granddaughter who watches the fake stream news media and then investigates further, finds the holes like Swiss cheese in the plot, and confronts the granny saying, "Granny, I don't think that story's true. That witness said she saw the shooter in the school and he was dressed from head to toe in body armor. And yet they claim he rode to the school in an Uber. Also, the shooter was supposedly seen without any gun. Yet the news is telling you
He's killed 17 people. We've got to do something about these guns.
as if they're to blame." My question is, so this guy got in an Uber, dressed up in full gear, body armor, with a mask over his face, and the Uber driver didn't think to call the police and say, "Hey, I just had a guy in full body armor with an AR-15, they love that one, rifle. He asked me to drop him off at a school, and I did." No such reports. Leads us to believe that some child was probably hired to play the role of the shooter. He probably got some kind of promises and moved to an island in another country with a different name. But the people out there are eating this up, thinking that, oh yes, we must restrict our freedoms more so we can be more free. We must disarm ourselves because people are saying, oh, I'm not against the Second Amendment, but I just think we should take away the guns. Stupid. Plus, they're all focusing on this AR-15 thing. It's called the Totalitarian Tiptoe. They can't just expect to walk up and say, hey everybody, we're going to take all your guns. That won't work. So what do? They plan events like these. So then they can start with the big guns. And then, once that's done, oh, surprise, we'll hear of another mass shooting with a handgun. So guess what's next on the list? We've got to ban these handguns. They're so dangerous. My argument is, oh really, so if a bunch of kids came into a school with a bunch of box cutters and slit the throats of all the teachers and students, would they be calling for a ban on box cutters? I don't think so. You see, there's something you don't know about called the deep state. It supersedes our president or other countries' leaders. It has its own agenda. It wants the American people disarmed. Why? Think of Hitler. What did he do? He wanted to disarm his people, and then they are subject to a tyrannical government. That's what's being planned, and these stupid sheeple fools are falling for it, actually throwing their own rights away, in effect, wanting to give up their freedoms as if it's going to be safe in this world if only the military and only the police have guns, and the people don't. That ain't going to work, because also the criminals are going to have the guns, and you know what? They're one and the same with the government, the military, and all that. They're all criminals. We need those guns per our God-given Second Amendment right so we can protect ourselves on the day when Hitler comes to our door and says, give me your gun. We can say, oh no, honey, pow, pow, pow. People aren't thinking of that because they're distracted by the propaganda. Well, that's all thanks to the fact it's legal. As if it wasn't being done anyway, but at least now they have the defense when they do it. So basically everything you see on your television, except for this broadcast right now, is probably fake. It's probably designed to get a specific reaction from you, and if you're falling for it, honey, wake the up! This is Sandy Hoaxtard. Have a great evening.
Oh, I'm glad that's over. Oh, I hate reporting on such things because the people ain't gonna get it. They're just stupid. Is the camera off? Thanks. Don't these people realize that the television is a device for mind control? Think about it. Movies, the television, all that media is controlled by 5 corporations. They want to dictate the world. You see those cartoons when you're a kid of those villains who want to rule the world? Well, honey, that's what you got here. These people are real. Where do you think they got the ideas for those things?
I'll see you at my house later, honey. Johnny. Yes, I still got it. Anyway, I just think it's sick that the propaganda's legal. Means we could say anything on the news. I'm glad we're an honest news network. We don't fall for that stuff, but think of all the people disarming themselves, potentially, all for a lie, just so someone else can be laughing behind the curtain at them when they're defenseless because they somehow thought that they were safer without any kind of protection against tyrannical government. I could talk about that for hours. I just find it disgusting. People are just stupid. It's not their fault. I know how it is. When I was younger, I always thought the news is the authority. So if somebody told me something happened and I didn't quite believe it, I would run to my newspaper or my news station and hope there was some kind of special on it. And if it was on the news, it was true. But honey, those days are gone. In fact, they probably never were here to begin with. But it's just disgusting because you can't believe a word that comes out of our television. And it's just coming at us to try to influence us to believe this way or believe that way and not realize we're giving up our own rights. Look at that Patriot Act. Patriot. What a ridiculous name for that. That basically gives permission legally to spy on every U.S. citizen and call them as terrorists if they don't go along with the narrative that's popular and it's being pushed. Oh, I'm glad I'm moving to Zimbabwe. See how things are there. I think I'm going to be a transgender news anchor. Maybe I'll be another reporter. I'm not sure yet. But anyway.